Senator Eric Pratt joins me to talk a little bit about the campus safety issue. We'll begin with that. Senator, thanks for joining us here at Capitol Report.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
I want to begin with the hearing on Metro campus safety. What did you take from that hearing?
You know, what I took from that hearing was our various levels of law enforcement are working very well together. We heard from the campus security, we heard from the city of Minneapolis and the counties that the interoperability is working very well. They train together, they communicate. We even heard one scenario where campus police took over during a shift change. And so it's that type of partnership that we need to continue in order to make sure that our students are safe. The other thing I heard was that we do have a lot of resources available to students. We have Gopher Chauffeur, which is available. We've got education going out to students, telling them how to make the right choices. Now it's up to the students to take that to heart. Unfortunately, these incidents might be what causes them to pay attention.
And you also heard some students testifying on some things they thought could be improved. One gentleman brought up that perhaps there could be better lighting and more cameras at the University of Minnesota. You mentioned the Gopher Chauffeur. One person testified how at one particular night there was a 2-hour wait to get a ride. So given that and the fact that Hennepin County Sheriff Rich Stanek stated that there are no easy solutions to this issue, do you think there can be anything done at the legislative level to assist with this?
You know, it's something we should look at. Certainly there are some health and safety types of funds that we lend to the universities and the campuses. And so if there's anything from a security standpoint that they'd like to bring forward, it's certainly something we can look at. But you know, the university and the local law enforcement agencies are closest to the problem. They know what they need. And I'd rather not have a lot of new state rules and regulations come down with unintended consequences that'll actually hinder their ability to do their job right. I'd rather be more in the support role.
So to that point, if the Department of Public Safety or the higher ed institutions came to the legislature wanting more money to help fill some of these gaps, would you support more funding?
I'd have to take a look at the entire package. Certainly we're in a bonding year, and that might be a perfect opportunity to focus on safety. You know, one thing is the university board's autonomous, and so we don't necessarily direct how they utilize their funding. And it's up to the university to prioritize how much they want to put to landscaping. I think was environmental landscaping their campus versus some of the other issues. Again, we're here to support them.
Senator, excuse me, I'd like to shift gears now and talk a little bit about a conversation Senator Patricia Torres-Ray would like to have with the legislature, and it's about teacher recruitment and retention, specifically in K through 12 and special education. You were in a committee last week when this conversation came up. Let's talk a little bit about, do you believe that there is a considerable shortage out there, and do you think the legislature should play a role in filling the gap?
You know, I don't know that we do have a shortage. And I think what we're talking about here is maybe a shortage based on Minneapolis-St. Paul versus the rest of the state. My experience being on a school board, and I just talked to some of my administrators last weekend, was we're getting 150, 200 applications for every opening that we post. And so and I hear story after story about kids that are graduating with education diplomas that can't find jobs. So I don't think we necessarily have a shortage of educators. It's getting them and attracting them to the urban areas, which might be the focus of Senator Patricia Ray's or Torres-Ray's comments.
You know, the federal government currently does offer loan deferment, cancellation, and forgiveness if a teacher does agree to teach in a particular area or a particular subject. Do you think this is enough, and should this be a tool utilized more heavily for some of the lower performing schools?
I think it should. And in fact, we even supported Teach for America, which was maybe students who weren't education majors, but brought other skills to the classroom and were certainly motivated to help. It didn't pass. They only wanted $100,000 to keep the grant, to expand the grant, and those are the type of energetic role models that we need in those classrooms.
Senator, I'd like to get your perspective on this particular statement. It was a quote in a story from The Atlantic on October 18th, and it looked into the reasons why, nationally speaking, 40 to 50% of all teachers quit within the first 5 years. And one response that resonated was, quote, "We are held up to a really high standard for everything." Would you agree with this statement, and do you think that this might have something to do with teacher turnover?
It is. There's a lot of pressure on education to perform. There's a lot of pressure on school boards. Certainly No Child Left Behind was a push to get accountability back in the schools. We're finding more and more emphasis on standardized testing. And what that does is it causes teachers to teach to the test versus to teach the curriculum that they know. We now have more and more federal standards coming down from curriculum that take some of that decision making away from the local school boards. So certainly I think that's a part of it. One thing that we found in my district was we put a lot of emphasis on supporting teachers when they were new to the profession. We paired them up with a mentor so that they didn't feel like they were on an island, so they weren't independent contractors in their classroom, that they really did feel connected, were part of a team. They had that mentorship, that support to be able to talk freely and work through problems. That was key to the Prior Lake District and lowering its turnover rate. The other thing that the Prior Lake District did was it focused on utilizing that probationary period. When I first joined the board, I don't think we did as good a job of having some of those tough evaluation conversations with new teachers, and so they got tenure and they continued to struggle throughout their career. Today, the board and the administration really put an emphasis on identifying those strong candidates and hopefully coaching out some of the people where maybe it's not the right fit.
And so to that point, my last question for you is, would it be your preference that this be an issue taken on at the local level with local school boards, or do you think this is something for the legislature to look at?
You know, as a former school board member, I believe it's something that should be taken on at the local level. It's always easier for a parent to address the school board than it is for them to come to me and me have to convince 200 other legislators of an idea. Local school boards are made up of dedicated citizens. Their election certificate is just as credible and valid as mine. And so they have a responsibility to their communities. They're closer to the communities and they know what's best and they know what they need. So I would absolutely favor more decision making, more of this being handled at the local levels. And there are groups like the Minnesota Association of Superintendents that trade ideas and best practices. Minnesota School Boards Association, which helps with model policies for school boards to adopt and modify. So there's better best practice, I think is the term that's used in education. Best practice sharing being done throughout the state.
Okay, thank you for providing your perspective on both of these issues, Senator Pratt. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.